The next thing that I'd like to talk about is sometimes Apex, even though it offers options for us to declaratively change how something looks, sometimes it's not exactly what we want. And so we're going to talk about a particular property that I love. It's called HTML expression. And it allows developers to fully customize how a column is going to render or be displayed. And this is kind of like the vehicle that we use to either inject icons or cool looking buttons or button groups, maybe an image. And these are HTML expression is kind of like your way of staying with declarative Apex, but also tweaking it and adjusting it to fit exactly what you want. And also just a shout out to Apex Oracle Com/UT. That is the universal theme sample application. And that can really help you when you want to inject icons or buttons into your Apex application. Because I know not every developer is comfortable or familiar with HTML and CSS. So the universal theme kind of reference app found at Apex Oracle Com/UT can help you kind of generate or build the appropriate HTML and CSS that you need. And actually, I'm going to kind of work backwards here a little bit, and let me just show you what I mean. And I guess I'll show you the report first, and then we'll also go ahead and show you kind of how I got the HTML expressions to kind of put in here. And it's going to look a little bit silly, mostly because I have this image here. I wanted to put an image so you could see, but there's a couple other things that I want to talk about. So the first one is you can see that we have a static icon. Every single column has a little icon in the front. Now, it's just a way kind of to add a little bit of meaning to that column. So how exactly would I achieve that? What HTML could I write to produce that icon? Well, if I go to Apex Oracle Com/UT, it's going to take me right here to this landing page. And the first option that I get here are icons. Go ahead and click that. And I know that I'm looking for something that has to deal with users. So I'm going to type in user, and I can see that it automatically filters to what I need. And actually, the very first option is FA user. That's the icon that I used. And right there is my HTML, and I can just copy it, and I now have it on my clipboard to use in my application. Easy enough. Okay, so now that I have that, what do I do with it? Well, let's go ahead and quick edit this column so you can see. And right here under column formatting, I have an HTML expression, and there I've just gone ahead and pasted in that HTML markup. And I've also said, well, in addition to showing that icon, I still would like to inject the employee name. So that's why we see the icon and the name. All right, good enough. And notice that this is a little bit small, but you can see that it's FA user. It's this class with FA that makes it an icon, and then FA user, which picks a particular icon that we would like to see. Okay, that's pretty cool. But notice that to the right, we have a dynamic icon. Not every employee has the exact, or not every job has the exact same icon. And you can see here that if I sort by dynamic icon, you can see that different jobs have different icons. Well, how do you manage something like that? Well, just like I was able to dynamically inject the employee name, I can also inject the class that I want to use for my icon. So if I go to job, you can see that I'm injecting job icon class, as well as just injecting the job itself. But job icon class has to come from somewhere. I can't just put that here and expect the database to pick the appropriate icon for me. And that's kind of why, if we go back to our SQL statement, we can see that I've done a little bit of translation work here to say, well, if you're a clerk, then you're going to have a user headset. Salesman is going to be user secret. And then ultimately, if you're something else, you're just going to be a user with a wrench. And notice how I aliased that as job icon class. And that is the exact name that I used in my HTML expression. So please use HTML expression to kind of create these kind of slightly more complicated kind of renders or displays for your classic report data. That one's not so bad. The other one that I get a lot of questions about are dynamic colors. How do I change the colors of things based off of a threshold? And the first thing that I'd like to mention is you could make whatever colors you want, and that's totally fine. But one of the things that I would recommend is that you also kind of leverage colors that are provided by Apex. So that way, as Apex, well, one, it kind of will help make a consistent color palette for your users throughout the application. And also that way, as Apex grows and evolves, your customizations kind of grow and evolve with Apex. You don't have to circle back and kind of do a bunch of cleanup work when it's time for you to upgrade. So how is that achieved? Well, first off, I just want to go and point out that in the universal theme sample application under reference, there is a area here called color and status modifiers. And if you want anything to be, leverage existing colors in the universal theme, you can use, these are all examples of classes that you can use throughout your application. I went ahead and I actually used down here, these text classes, danger text, info text, and success text. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like in my query. We can see here that we're taking a look at salary, and we're saying if salary is less than 1,000, then we're going to say success text. If it's less than 3,000, then we're going to say info text, and then finally, if it's greater than 3,000 or greater than or equal to 3,000, then we're going to have danger text. That's great. Again, I computed that value, but how do I actually leverage it? Well, again, that comes back to my HTML expression. If I go and I look at my salary, I'm not just showing my salary, but I'm wrapping that in a span tag, and I am injecting my salary class. You might be wondering why I'm not injecting it here, but to my knowledge, you can't dynamically inject CSS classes here. Ultimately, if I could, I would do it here, but I don't believe that's supported. But if someone has a better solution for that, let me know. And the last one that I want to show you has to do with images, because oftentimes we want to dynamically generate URLs to display images. So how do we do that? Well, as a preface to this, I've gone ahead and I've uploaded several images up into my application static resources. And we can see here that I have an application image here, and it's all based off of the name of the employee. So we're going to go get image for Clark, image for King, image for Alan. And maybe you might want to have some sort of condition that says like, well, these employees or this data set's going to have this image, and then otherwise you're going to have this image. So a good example of this would be if you have product images and you want to get images for products, but some products might not have an image yet. So you want to have some sort of placeholder image that you load instead. So this is just kind of to show you how you can load different images based on the record. So here you can see that Blake has this image, Clark has that image, King has that image, and then everyone else kind of has this little lost koala image. And finally, when you generate icons, there's also some icons that have a little bit of meaning kind of baked into them. And one such example that I've seen used a couple times that I think is pretty interesting is this little pie chart icon. So I can, rather than using that full bar chart that we saw before, I can have a much smaller rendering into this little pie chart icon. And how does this work? Well, what I've done is I've basically floored my value so that it only steps in increments of 5. So it's 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, so on and so forth, all the way up to 100. So it steps in increments of 5. Why is that important? Well, if I look at my HTML expression, I can see that I want to get a pie chart, but I also want to make sure that I get the pie chart that matches the percent. And unfortunately, if we go look at those pie charts, they only step in increments of 5. And to prove that to you, or at least just to show you where you could find this information, if I go back to icons and I look up pie, you can see here is the pie chart, and you can see it's pie chart 0, 10, 100, 15, 20. So there's different steps of 5 that we could use. So we're kind of leveraging the different icons. So we're actually loading very different icons based on the data. So HTML expressions are awesome for customizing how exactly we display information.